Hey guys, welcome to Sunday night recap of the week. Super excited. I apologize I didn't come on live stream on Friday or Wednesday. It's the holidays. I had my kids and we were quite busy, and so I did trade, but I didn't get a chance to set up the live stream, so I apologize. Hopefully you guys can join us. I do live stream starting at 6 a.m. Pacific time, and that's 9 a.m. Eastern time. And I'll trade through the first hour, and I'll be live streaming at least for the first half hour, just sharing my thoughts. And so just want to run through real quick kind of some of the things that we've been talking about. We'll start off with Tesla. As we mentioned, we started to see this failure of this level right here at the 489, which we talked about on the channel. And now we've seen a complete shift all the way down with Tesla. I remember calling this way back down here when we were right here. I was saying 215 to 220 was a buy zone. And that, was what, 9 months ago. And after hours, it came in at that 216 area and it just skyrocketed. So it's been on quite the run. It made, all new time highs up here. I think we'll eventually get through that 500 level, but not without a sell off. And so in terms of buying Tesla, I'm not that enthusiastic. The momentum is negative. You're not even at the oversold on the RSI. So personally, I would stay away from the stock. I would be shorting any pops. Clearly, there's a gap here, which there's going to be gaps that don't close for some time. So this would be kind of the bounce that I'm looking at here. If I were to look at any intermediate bounce, be closer to this 386. Which, if you figure if you're at $500 and you've dropped essentially 60, 70 points in a matter of a few trading sessions, another 50 points gets you there. So it doesn't sound like it's too out of the question, but delivery numbers are down. The news hasn't been great. The catalyst isn't there. The numbers are declining. There's no reason for the stock to really do that well. But like I said, just calling it back from here and the consolidation and the new highs is quite impressive. So again, looking here, potentially a break if it gets really aggressive down here. So I'm not really looking to buy. Like I said, I'm looking to short any pops. So we'll be watching this. Definitely the biggest winner probably of the year. Don't know if I'll see a trade like this again. Like we mentioned on the channel, we talked about that the momentum has shifted. There was confirmation of that 4 trading sessions ago with all these doji candles. I mentioned to you guys that I was looking at this retest here at the 633 level to buy puts, and this was just money. I mean, it was just an incredible move. Even though I bought the puts slightly early, I would say about 3 days earlier, and they were about a month out, as I mentioned, is they were 100% plus return. If you had bought them even closer, you're probably closer to 400% return. Just an amazing flush. I don't think we're going to see a trade like that. That's probably the trade of the year, just in terms of a short-term option trade. Definitely a big winner. Big flush candle. Really no bounce in this. This was a 610 bounce. I did play a little bit to the long side, thinking that we would hold right here at the 625 level. We ended up flushing below that. And so this stock is completely just, in the gutter right now. Don't be surprised if we're back at $500 pretty anytime soon. So I'm not really looking at anything right now in terms of call options. But once we get down and we show all the signs and there's more technical indicators showing that this flush is down. I mean, this is a big bearish candle, and so I don't expect us to get back here anytime soon. And we closed below the 50-day, which is pretty significant. And so now we're between the 50-day and the 200-day, which are still positive moving. Stock is still uptrending. But like I said, the stock just was at, as I mentioned previously, was at $500 right around Thanksgiving, ran all the way up to $700 in a matter of a month. So it's just a quite the mover. Not as big as this bearish candle, but this was such a great flush. And like I said, I'm so happy we called it. Hopefully some of you guys took that trade. Also, we talked about MU last week. We mentioned that MU was going to go through 300, and it had this sort of fake out, and then it had this sort of retrace, and it blew everyone out. And this one candle, I think it was like the first minute candle, it was already up like $8-9, and it settled at 309 and ran up. And so I expect this to continue as it makes a new leg up. Maybe tomorrow you'll probably see some type of retracement. It was actually squeezing after hours. So if we look at after hours for MU, you can see it was doing this. And this kind of reminds me actually of silver going into the previous day when we were getting that bullish run. right in here, right? So people will hold on thinking it squeezes, and then it actually ends up retracing some of that move. I don't expect it to retrace the complete move, but I expect it definitely not to at least come back down to earth. It was a complete squeeze, bullish candle. And so definitely I would look at, looking up here at a support of like 309, which is where it broke out of. That's where I would be looking for a long. And so definitely solid move, great stock. And so that's where I would be buying tomorrow. As if I'm buying a bounce on this is a 310. And I would just get rid of it if it goes anything below that, because this thing has plenty of space down, but with the new leg up, I think it's going to continue squeezing folks out, shorts out. Great stock. I was long, as I mentioned, way back in the day, sold it in this first upward trend. Usually don't swing a lot of stocks, don't really care to, but that, obviously pays dividends if you're holding on into this finally upwards trajectory and breaking all the new highs. Coin did what we also expected it to do. We said it finally broke that 231. We had this 231 right here ceiling, and we wanted this test, and we said it tested here, retraced some, came back, okay, and it was just waiting. You can see all of these candles. I mean, for coin, which trades, at least, I mean, that's a $23 spread. It trades a lot with a pretty good spread. Typically, what does it look like? It's trading around, less than, what is that, about $12. I mean, the spread just seems like it was getting tighter and tighter, and finally we got this flush, and we broke that 231, which I mentioned. If we broke that 231, we would be looking to short. And so there was a short. I didn't take the trade, but it didn't actually close the full gap. Okay, so it was a short, ran back up. Like I mentioned, it could easily run back up here to $300, which I expected to, before we really start to downtrend further. Okay, but it basically might have trapped some more shorts. And so the low here was what, like 225. It's about 225. We had a double support on that, so we didn't quite close that gap there. SPY still looks pretty healthy, trading below the 20-day, above the 50-day. Like I mentioned too, I'm still bearish. We've been really just trending straight up for the last two plus years in the market, and haven't really made any significant correction like we did when we had the tariffs. So I still expect that to be the case, is that, now that the new year has started, and we saw the first day was kind of an indication of the sell-off, a lot of these high runners, I personally expect that the SPY will start downtrending. And so we'll start to see kind of this sort of shift with the momentum. And then, like I said, I'd be looking to buy when things start to get oversold. But right now we're trading at a lot of all-time highs. Not following Nvidia too much. It is on my watch list. This stock has ran, for quite a while now. And so I'm more on the bearish side. I think there's a lot more gaps and candles on the way down than there is upwards. You figure there's a lot factored into a multi-trillion-dollar company, and so that eventually dries up. There's, they can't even power to meet the needs of what this guy's doing, and so how much of that's already factored into essentially what's a $200 stock. And so again, I would look at, essentially what I feel like, at least on the weekly chart, which was something I had looked at, I think it was yesterday, is it looks like almost like a head and shoulders patterns forming. And so you can see here sort of a shoulders, we broke out of it, and now we're sort of forming this head. And so, if I'm looking to buy maybe the 150 range for a back up, if that fails, and we're looking at this sort of shoulder potentially that can form. And so head and shoulders typically is a bearish signal. Again, not a big fan of the stock, just trading at near all-time highs. Ran quite a bit. I mean, stock that was 50, $60 a couple years ago now is a couple grand. I mean, that's a pretty good run. And back to that, app is still getting a lot of good, for its price to earnings ratio, it's still pretty cheap, and so that gives it plenty of room to run, right? So this could be another one to look at. Let's see, what else do we want to talk about? Silver kind of been trending in the same area, didn't really do too much. So we had this high, got a lot of people stuck holding overnight, right? That's what the market does, thinking that it's going to continue. We had this bullish, but we also know we're out in la la land, right? We said this thing's up in the air, and anything that comes up in the air will fall down as fast. And so the trades have gotten a little complicated, haven't really filled in the gap. Kind of did that on Friday. But it is a little funky, but we can look at a continued momentum with the stock. As this thing starts to cross and starts to confirm a negative trend, I will eventually be buying puts in the stock. So we'll probably talk about that next Friday. And so definitely looking at this stock, you know, coming kind of back down to earth. It's just been a massive, massive runner. But once I get the confirmation on my technical indicators, I will definitely be looking more bearish on it. And especially now that we've trapped a lot of people, we know how people get trapped. Everyone talks about it. They talk about it down here. People are buying, and eventually the bag gets dropped, right? So I'm looking for that. And then for some of these sort of small cap plays, Sidhu is a big one that everyone's been trading. I haven't traded it personally. I've been watching it. So I had these high volume days you can see here. And then you can see there's a lot low volume. So a lot less sellers. They ran it down, then they brought it up. And you can see clearly it's trending up. The trend hasn't changed. There is this gap here up into the 460s. But you can see in these high volume days, this thing can really run. And so what I think happened is the buyers here, they consolidated. They've been holding onto their shares and they're going to let this thing run. So I wouldn't be looking to short this thing. Space is sort of the new thing it's in. I would just be looking for the long side and just, you know, just being careful, because once they do sell this thing off, you can see this thing can drop down back to, and it'll get there eventually. It's just the squeeze, and they've actually raised a lot of money in the squeeze. So they'll squeeze it, people will buy it, they'll raise the money, and they'll sell the shares a lot less than what it's worth. So not a really good, something good. Be nice, something I was trading on. This is actually a similar setup to what I think of Sidhu. So for some reason, this thing didn't want to go. It had plenty of space to go. It is a low float stock, so it only has a few million shares. And so it really wanted to go. I was thinking we were going to get up here into the 460s, and we didn't quite get there. There's just constant selling. Every time it passed, I'll show you guys on my chart here. So if you look at the minute chart, every time this thing wanted to go, it just kept just selling. So look, it never really crossed a sort of $4 threshold without selling off. So what I think this is, again, is you have a lot of folks in this trade. The shorts are going to be down, and I think this will be a continuation play. So maybe we consolidate tomorrow and then we run up again, consolidate for maybe a couple days and then run up again. But I'll keep my eye on this. Like I said, it's a very low float stock, and it traded a lot of shares. Let me see how much did we trade. It was a lot. I think it was like a $4 or $5 million. Look, traded like 100 million, and it barely moved, right? So it went from 255 up to 420, and the float's very small. So there's some manipulation going on here. So I can see this thing squeezing out pretty hard. So it'll be on my watch list for sure. Besides that, guys, I don't really have much other than the fact that we did bomb the hell out of Venezuela, which wasn't something, you know, great to hear. That all we're talking about is oil now. And so expect USO, which is a fund that I've been involved with, you know, many years ago. Expect some volatility there. Plenty of space to squeeze up, because it's a fund there. You know, I expect some volatility considering, you know, what happened over the weekend. And so definitely keep your eye out on USO if you're trying to play the oil sector. All right, guys, so that's what I have for you. You know, it's going to be a new trading week. It's going to be a full trading week without the holidays. I expect the volume to pick up, so there'll be a lot more liquidity to get in and out of stocks. So that's always going to be exciting. And so I look forward to doing live trading. Hopefully we'll see you guys on the live stream tomorrow at 6 o'clock. All right, guys, we'll see you later. Take care. Bye-bye.